Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'll be taking a look at Elle Shivers, The Sucker. This is newly out from Silver Sprocket. So I want to give it a review, give it a shout out, but not give away too much about the book. I think you definitely should go buy it. So a quick look at the contents of the book, kind of an overview of the story, without giving away any too big of spoilers, hopefully. So on the first page here, I really like this, that you get kind of a good synopsis of what you're getting into with the story, but it's also a piece of the story itself. So I always like documents in comics where it's a document, but it's also part of the story. So here we get like a printout of an email from a Richard de los Santos to an EJ. And Richard is setting up what's going to be the course of most of the story, is that they're going to be going to Kinney Island, and there's a big plans to develop it commercially, and they're putting together a team to survey the island that's supposedly uninhabited, and they're just want to make sure it's going to be okay to put up these commercial developments, basically like hotels and things like that, apartment buildings or something. Ricky is looking to employ EJ as a marine biologist to come through, and then is also asking, do you know anyone who could be an underwater photographer? And that's basically the setup for the story. So then you go into this, which I really like, again, this kind of documentary aspect of things. So you get these different islands. These are out in the Philippine Sea, and you have Kinney Island up here, which is the one that they're going to be going and investigating. So you get that here. I think that maybe there's just some words that got left out on the first page, but it's also possible that this character here is just not paying attention and is checking out the EJ character. This is the third kind of main character in the story. So you have Ricky here, who's the person putting it all together, and then you have EJ here, as well as Danny, who's been brought on as the photographer. And you kind of get the sense that this character has been brought in at EJ's suggestion, based on the idea that Ricky has asked for a photographer. But then here, EJ is kind of like pretending, I guess, given some things you find out later in the story, kind of pretending that they don't really remember Danny. EJ's acting surprised. Danny's like, hey, it's Danny from swim team. Nice to see you here. And you don't really get a sense of EJ communicating that she's the reason why Danny's there. So that's kind of an interesting little thing that's going on between the two characters that's important to the story, is that, their past relationship on the swim team together when they were in high school, and then obviously them working together now on this project. So here you kind of get them going on to the island for the first time, and you have Danny here, the photographer, you have Ricky leading the group, and then you have EJ along as the marine biologist, and you have some other characters, but those are pretty much the main three there that are in this project. Then they start doing some underwater diving in this lagoon or lake or something like that on the island, an inlet, and they encounter this squid-like creature, and immediately this engagement with the squid-like creature causes Danny's walkie-talkie to explode underwater, and so they have to go up. And then that's where I'll leave off and say, well, I don't want to get too much more into the story, but they have to figure out what this creature is, what it's doing there, and then that impacts what's going on with the survey, right? You have this rare creature there, you're talking about putting up a hotel, and this is going to be a problem for the environment. So then it's going to be a problem for the company putting it up, because now they have to worry about creatures in the environment, basically. So that's the setup for the story, that you have those three characters. They obviously kind of a triangle, not a love triangle, but a friendship triangle. There are different connections, with EJ being kind of the node that connects the other two, and then them exploring this island and interacting with this creature for this commercial company. As you can see from the book, it's like a really well drawn book. really nice art all the way throughout. It's printed on this nice creamy paper, and it's printed, with a spot color. The only problem I would say with the production is that because it's printed just line work with the spot color and some of these tones and stuff, it could have been printed without. It should have been able to be printed without having to halftone anything, but everything is halftone. There are these like ink wash moments here which would need to cause the halftoning, but I think they could have avoided that and the print would have looked a little crisper, or just separated those out as separate layers. But I mean, it's a really, really well drawn book, and really, really nice production overall. I really like the spot color and the yellow together gives it kind of it feels islandy. It feels like it has a mood or an atmosphere to the whole of the story. And then the story itself is a pretty intriguing story. There's also some really nice, more abstract moments like this, where you just get the ocean and the days passing and things like that. And then just overall, like the delicate touch and the feeling of atmosphere and place being in there throughout the book, I think is really, really nice. And then at the end, you get a second email that I'm not going to go into, but the second email includes some more information that sets up that kind of closes off some of the character interactions between the book. It exposes some information that undercuts what one of the characters is saying, so kind of exposes that they were up to some shifty stuff that makes looking back on the book even more intriguing. So you get that last little bit of information right at the end that relates to the information you get at the beginning, and then all the stuff in the end, in the middle, kind of makes some more emotional sense. So I think it's a very interesting storytelling structure and strategy of using these opening and closing documents to frame basically the context of the story and the emotional interactions between the characters. So that's as much as I want to say about the story, because it's a new book, so I don't want to give away too many spoilers. But really enjoyed it. Like I said, great art throughout, well designed, well printed, and then I found the story very compelling. This is another one of those ones where, as I worry about my own work, worry about stories needing to be decompressed to land more of an emotional impact. This is a pretty tight, compressed little story. I would like 100 pages at most, probably not even that much. And because of how Elle Shivers like framed the story with those two bits of information in the emails and just choosing the exact right moments, this is a pretty compressed story that still has all of the information I need to have the emotional impact of the story land. So this is another one that's like inspiring me as I'm, trying to move into doing my own finished graphic novel projects, but a little bit worried about how much time I have to complete them. I know they'll have to be short projects. And seeing books like this, that's like, yeah, you can tell a good emotionally loaded story in a short amount of time, is inspiring and gives me a lot of hope that I can at least have a chance to do something like that myself. So yeah, it's a really great piece. I'd suggest that you get it. Definitely recommend it. The Sucker by Elle Shivers from Silver Sprocket. If you enjoy what we're doing here on the channel, you enjoy all the stuff that we're exposing you to, there's two ways to support us. The first one is through our Patreon. We have 2 different tiers of engagement there. The first one is just early access to our videos. At the second tier, you get exclusive access to a webcomic experiment that we're doing. You can help vote in that and control what happens to the character to some extent. You also get early previews of those graphic novel projects that I'm working on and that Sean is working on, our personal artworks, things like that go up. Any of the money we get from the Patreon just helps us buy the books that we review, so we try to turn that money back into the community. We really appreciate that support because it helps us keep exposing you to new things to consider buying. If you want to support Living the Line itself, the best thing to do is to support what Sean is doing with Living the Line Publishing. So we'll go ahead and take a look at one of his projects now. Centralia is an awesome, gorgeous comic by rising Dutch star Miel van de Peet. This is his first work. It's a really great sci-fi story. There's a world in the future where the sun has gotten so hot that people can't be on the ground, so they have to run around. There's a lot of conceits that go with that. What is the world that looks like? And I think you can see by the art that Sean's description of this book as like a Moebius for young adults, a YA Moebius, is a really
great description of this really gorgeous and like wild, wacky, fun book.
Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.